Welcome back to the Dare to Dream podcast. My name is Vincent Van Patten.
And I'm Gregory Russell Benedict.
This is a podcast to inspire you to embark on the adventure of your life. Gregory, we've been talking. Hey, buddy. And this week, it's going to be one of those episodes where we kind of just flesh out what we're going through. And hopefully, this inspires you in some capacity. But yeah, we've kind of been having this debate of where we want to go with this show. Does it need to be more very structured? We come to the table, fully baked ideas. Gregory, you might be fully baked yourself in California, but I won't be in Japan, half baked over here. But it come to the episode with, we know what we're talking about, we know where we're going. And, that kind of symbolizes what we're thinking about with just the podcast in general of where are we really going with it? What do we want to, convey? Pretty much the idea is, do we have everything kind of down to a science? And that's just even in our lives as well. Or is it okay to just kind of take more of a backseat and allow ourselves to just go with the flow of where it takes us, have some more fun with it, with each episode, with the podcast in general, and with what we are pursuing in our lives.
Yeah. And we started this whole podcast, the Dare to Dream podcast, back in July of 2020 as an honest and unfiltered look into what it's like to quit your job in corporate America, to start a podcast, to try and figure out what it is that lights your soul on fire. And what I was noticing is recently it's felt like there's so much more pressure to get it right, to add value, to make sure that each thing we say is a perfect sentence with no filler words and all of that. And it's so funny because it's all self-created pressure. We were talking about this before. Maybe we'll release that of just us kind of venting and complaining and talking about that. It's hard. It's really hard to do all of these creative pursuits because you have no idea if you're doing it right, if there is a right answer, if people are listening, if people care. And just coming back week after week and asking yourself, what am I doing this for? Is it adding value to my life? All the big existential questions. And that's what we're grappling with and a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What's coming up there is just not knowing like what the answer is. And I think with these things that we're pursuing and with anything that is meaningful. I mean, this is what we talked about, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, of like the best things in life, you don't know if they're going to work out, but you have to take a leap of faith anyway. And if it, I guess, just keep checking in with yourself of, is this thing adding value to my life? Is it making me happy? And I added to my Instagram bio, once again, pursuing what lights my soul on fire. Because over the
Yes.
years, that is really what encapsulates what we are doing and what I'm doing with my writing and with podcasting and with everything. It's, if it's not lighting my soul on fire, it is, well, in other words, if it is lighting my soul on fire, that's what I should be doing. And that's the thing that we all should be doing, or at least trying to find what that thing is. But this week, we kind of both felt very overwhelmed with the pressure that we put on ourselves to perform. And when you don't have, when you're not necessarily getting paid for the thing, when it's purely a passion project that you want to make a career, when it's something that you don't know if it's going to work, it's hard to know if the weight you're putting on yourself is beneficial, if it's the thing that, the impetus that keeps you going and keeps you grinding, and or if it's just adding unnecessary stress to your life. And there's so many different takes, avenues we could go down here, but like one of the things is just that the people that we look up to, thought leaders and such, like much of the advice for people in their 20s and early 30s and all of life is, a lot of the times it's the work that nobody sees, that that you have to do. Basically, for a long time, you're going to have to do work that nobody's going to see, to eventually, maybe one day the floodgates will open and you'll be an overnight success, even though you've been grinding, doing the work for the last 20 years. But while you're doing the work that nobody's seeing, that really is supposed to be for you and nobody else, that's why I'm coming back to the pursuing what lights my soul on fire, because even if nobody is reading my work, even if nobody's listening to the podcast, it's still, it brings me so much joy to do it, to write, to think about being in Japan and just how the world is moving me. And for us just to have these conversations, lights me up. And that is the difficult thing. And it's double-edged sword. It's like it gives our lives meaning to pursue these things that really matter to us. But it's also when you don't have clearly defined boxes of, yes, I am progressing, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, it's all making sense. It's really hard to know.
Yeah. What's standing out to me is how the human condition is so volatile. And one week we're on here talking about just let go of the outcome, play with life. It's so easy. It doesn't matter what happens. And then the next week we're questioning everything. And that's honestly what I'm trying to work on. And we were talking about this before. I realized recently that I am very comfortable with being vulnerable and open about my failures and what I'm struggling with. Once I've made it to the other side and I'm standing there with the lesson in hand, so I can
Mm,
talk about the struggles I had with self love. Once I've made it to self love and I can be like, this is what I did, this is what happened. It's really hard for me to show up in what I'm going to call the messy middle, where I don't have the answer, where I feel like I'm not adding value because I haven't found it. But hopefully, in my willingness to step into this, it shows that we don't have it figured out at all. And just being okay with that and being okay to grapple and bump into the walls and fall down a few times.
mhm. Do you think that it is, why do you think you're not okay to show up in the middle as much? Why do you think you want to come out the other side and that is when you want to, do you think there's more like value added to that, or
I think there's a handful of reasons. I think one is that it's scary to be vulnerable when you don't have the answer because then it's just vulnerability. It's not
Mhm.
vulnerability plus knowledge or plus confidence. It's just like, oh, wow, he doesn't have it figured out right now. So it's that, it's really wanting to add value and for people listening, making sure that it's making their day better and giving them knowledge. And I think I over index on the intellectual, like we need to be providing fun facts and stories and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And then there was another reason. What was the other one? I think it's hard for me because I really don't like complaining or venting. And I feel like when I'm doing that, I'm in a more negative mindset when I don't have the
Mhm.
answer, I don't have a solution. And I'm just a solution oriented person. So getting more comfortable with just sharing and not asking for solutions or not giving my own solutions is the scary cave for me to enter.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think me as well. And if we were talking about that Chris Williamson episode, Modern Wisdom, like psychological truths, and it seems like men, for the most part, they, I mean, me too. Like, I don't. That's why I'm talking about with my back. It's like I don't like to share this stuff because I haven't made it through the other side yet. So it's like I don't want to just. We don't want this to be a podcast of just like us venting about our problems. We want you to come away with something on the other side, but that isn't, it's not always easy. Like we obviously have not figured out, yeah, figured out much. We are still going through we're going through it just as much as everybody else. But I think also in that messy middle, it could be comforting to people too, to because sometimes you don't want it to be like, oh, this is, I went through it and this is what I figured out. I just want somebody to be there too, to be like, I mean, I was listening to Simon Sinek, I think, on the Diary of a CEO, and he's just talking about like how the workplace people are working from home, and that makes it more difficult. Like after work, people would go out to the bar with their colleagues, they grab a beer and just like vent about work. And you don't have a solution, but you needed that like safe space and those people who you could be in the mud with and just talk about how shitty it is. And but then that's what gives you camaraderie. That's what helps you get through it. And that's kind of something that is fading away in this new work environment where people are more lonely because they're working from home. There's more, it's workplace has totally changed of just it's hard, you can't even like really talk to people anymore without it seeming like you're hitting on them. And I don't know, it's a whole another bag of worms, but like it's just kind of changing. And you want people to relate to, and you want to have people you could just, you know, wallow in the mud with a little bit. So I think that does bring some comfort. And I think even in that wallowing, you'll come away with a few gems as well. I mean, that's what working through a problem is. But I think for men, it is harder to just sit there and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a solution, but this is kind of just what I'm going through.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because of all times too, the timing's perfect. I was listening to Brene Brown on Tim Ferriss this morning.
Mm.
Brene Brown is one of the most popular speakers in the world. Her TED Talk has 32 million views. And Tim asked her, like, why, how come every time I mention your name, I get the same response? Whenever I mention your name, I say I'm talking to Brene Brown. People go, oh, I love her. And what she was saying is she thinks it's because she does research on shame and guilt and the messy middle. I think that might be her term. Maybe I might have just stole it. And but she shows up and talks about how it's messy in her own life and where she's feeling guilt and shame and all of these things. So it's not like she's standing on the other side of the canyon with the elixir ready to return home. She's being really open and vulnerable in the tough times in her own life. And that's why people resonate with her so much. So
Mm.
me just talking this through, it's like I'm trying to be the fully formed figure that doesn't have any struggle or challenge. But we've talked about on other episodes, like that's not a good story.
Right. Yeah, you got to show, the messy middle. You got to show what it is like to be actually going through the thing. And I think, yeah, that does just help us, I mean, deal with it as well. But I think a big part of it is this perception that we might think of that other people have of us. Like we were saying, the Jay Shetty quote, it's I am what I think you think I am. So my perception of myself is what I think other people think of me. So I think people think I'm this person who, I have to put out the newsletter. I'm writing about Japan. I'm doing all this stuff. And people, first of all, people don't give a shit. Everybody is worried, just thinking about themselves. And if they see something that, maybe brightens up the day a little bit, they're happy about it, maybe. I don't know. But it's not like people have this like, oh, why hasn't Vinny sent his newsletter? Like wait for it, or why hasn't he posted 3 articles?
It's
It's
2:15 and I haven't gotten it yet.
I can't have my coffee yet. We think we have this perception, and it's not only with like producing content, obviously. Everybody has a perception of what they think other people think of them. And if we don't live up to our own perception, it's like somehow that we failed in nobody's eyes but our own. And that's what kind of was difficult for me this week is I came back from like a chill, lovely weekend and came into the work day, just like first day of the week, and just like it felt like all this stuff kind of piled up on me. But pretty much, most of the things were just pressure that I put on myself to keep up in this arbitrary race of late 20s, where if I don't build this mountain and climb it simultaneously, then I'm somehow falling behind and failing. And it's, I mean, that's part of the difficulty with um, pursuing things where you don't know if it's going to work. It is a dance of seeing how much you could take and then really falling back. But what I was kind of saying about before and didn't really complete the thought was people that we look up to, Seth Godin and Jordan Peterson, and these people who say like in your 20s, like, pick one thing, work as hard as you possibly can and see what happens. It's like we're all just people figuring out life as well. Like Jordan Peterson, we are Jordan Peterson or Seth Godin or Brene Brown, but they're just people too who are figuring out what life means to them. And just as you or I would put out a article about what we're dealing with, and this is how maybe you can benefit from it and use this in your own life. They're putting out the way that they see the world and how they think maybe people can benefit from it. But maybe, I mean, Jordan Peterson's in his, I think, almost 60. They've been working on these same thoughts for 40 years, and we are still just scratching the surface of like what these beliefs actually mean to us. And it takes a long time to understand, you know, what life means to you, actually. So like even the people that we look up to so much, they don't have it figured out either. So who's to say that grinding in your late 20s or any of it is the correct way to do things?
I think sometimes grinding in your late 20s is the way to do things. Sometimes getting super overwhelmed and dropping everything and going out on a walk is the way to do things. There's a lot of different ways, and it's not just one answer. I think you and I have a strength that we're very porous. We're like sponges where we love listening to other people, we love reading, we love consuming knowledge. And that's a superpower. It allows us to talk about a lot of things and have endless fun facts at hand. But for me, at least, I'll speak for myself, it makes me really susceptible to other people's thoughts and opinions on how I should live my life, on what I need to be doing. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And even Jordan Peterson talks about it's good to take on as much as you possibly can and overwhelm yourself, get to that edge, get to the brink, and then kind of have that meltdown and then reel it back and bring it back in. And it's crazy. Like you and I are always in sync. Both of us on Tuesday just had big bad Tuesdays where we were really overwhelmed by everything. And then we talked and we felt better.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is like this just this moving pendulum because we are, we are progressing obviously in life, and that does feel good. Like, but it's like this buffer that's kind of vacillating. It's like it's like it's moving forward, but it's like it's dancing its way forward, which is a good. I mean, it's a good way to do things. Like having the meltdown this week made me realize that I do need to take pressure off myself with like just with the writing. I think that's the primary thing. And it's because I love it so much. Like that's why it's hard to take the foot off the pedal because every time I have a thought that I think will be like interesting or, try to put into a story, I'm like, oh, I gotta get this down. But I kind of don't want to miss just living too. And of course, my mom gave me great advice. She's like, you don't want to like put so much pressure on yourself that like this time is gonna fly by if you're so busy, like doing all this stuff. And it's true. I'm going from one thing to the next, like in the morning before work, the day just like goes so quick. And then I'm at work and then it's just like looking for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already been 6 months. That is how it's going quick. So if I don't take the time to pull back and just appreciate what it is and actually take time to not do anything, then it will go quick.
And then you have people like Charles Bukowski saying, find what you love and let it kill you. Let it drain from you your all. Let it cling onto your back and weigh you down into eventual nothingness. Let it kill you and let it devour your remains. And I think what's hard is I'm so motivated by that. Like, find what
Beach
you love and
whale.
let it kill you. Man, I get
I
so
mean,
fired up by just grinding and giving it my all. And then,
mhm.
yeah, there's times where I just get so overwhelmed and the wheels fall off.
Why do you think you like grinding so much?
That's a great question. It feels good. I love feeling like I'm achieving a lot of things, like I'm living up to my potential. Why else?
Is there a perception, do you think, that people have of you that you have to uh, stay consistent with, or else you've somehow failed?
Probably because that's what we talk about all the time. Right? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm looking over at my nightstand. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I'm reading 8 books right now because I have the section in what I'm reading in my
How is that
newsletter.
possible? Yeah, that's the thing too. I'm like, I haven't, I've been I got two books. So I got my fiction, my nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I haven't updated my newsletter with like what I'm reading in weeks. And like that's like putting pressure on me. Like I have to finish this book just so I could write a new book that I'm reading. I'm like Naval Ravikant says, like read one page a day and just let that one page like consume your thoughts. It's like who knows which is right. Like
It's
nobody. It's interesting.
it's so funny too because I could easily just delete that section out of my newsletter for like 5 months and no one would even notice.
Yeah, that's what like this week. It's just gonna be like I'm taking out all the sections. It's gonna be pretty much a note to the reader. And
Quick
I
note.
think that too, it's like a little spring cleaning of dropping some weight and seeing if this just trying different things too. I think in this space of pursuing what lights your soul on fire, as we said, there are no right ways to do things. So it's iterating. And if something feels good, like this week, got a lot better the day after I had that realization, like, just took the weight off myself and just enjoyed like just being out in the sun and like yesterday I was video chatting with Duke, my brother, and I was just biking through my neighborhood and he was just freaking out that like he's like never seen anything like this. Like this is the most quintessential Japan, like pretty much Ash Ketchum from Pokemon riding around his bike like a sunny morning. And he's like, you gotta be like on TikTok, like this is how you blow up a TikTok. This is how people are going to find your articles. You have to be just showing the things that people aren't seeing about Japan, just like a neighborhood tour in southern Osaka. Like, of course, I want to do that, but it's it's just more pressure. And what I mean, in that Seth Godin episode in Rich Roll, he's like, people, you don't blow up. Like people, it seems like everyone's just blowing up, but how hard and how rare that actually is to blow up on TikTok. So if that's your one goal in life, go for it, but don't be disappointed. And I mean, that's why like I got back on TikTok recently because I'm like, I gotta be posting all these things about Japan. Like, am I wasting this experience if I'm not
Mm.
capturing it? And that is a thing that I battled with in Europe too over the summer. It's here and hopefully it doesn't plague me for my life. It's the double-edged sword again of this is such an insane experience. And what I love to do is have these experiences in the world where they're like just very unique and capturing the just the daily kind of aspect, daily beauty of it. But also, what's the point of it if I'm not just experiencing riding my bike through my neighborhood in Japan? Like, why does it need to be a fucking TikTok?
Yeah, and it's what comes up for me when you say that is, did all the people who existed before TikTok waste their life and their travels and their experiences?
Exactly. I
Yes. The
yes,
answer is yes.
yes, it sure did, buddy. TikTok is the best,
The new
but
religion.
I guess it is a little bit harder for me just because I feel like it had that is what I want to, that's what I want my career to be. So it's just finding a balance between that too. Of I love this thing so much, I love experiencing life. That's also why I want to share it because I want to express just like the beauty of riding my bike through a sunny morning in Abeno. But I know that it means nothing if I can't. I mean, that's the essence of what this episode is about for me. It's taking the pressure off so you could not just suck the marrow out of life, but live it.
Boom, there's the title.
I think that's it.
Oh man, I
Yeah,
appreciate you. I'm glad we're on this journey together, my friend.
me too, buddy. You're the first person I call when I don't know, but I just need to vent. So love you, man.
Love you
What a
too, man.
journey.
Love you too. It's yeah, what a journey. It's what I'm sitting with is that sometimes capturing the experience with, for me, not TikTok, but capturing the experience, whether it's writing or a video or all that, like sometimes it feels really, really good. And that
Mhm.
feels like it's adding to the experience. I think when it starts to feel bad and it feels like it's detracting, when it's taking away from the experience, it's taking you out of the moment. That's what's coming up for me of like the balance and the distinction. Cause there's some days when I wake up and I'm like, I can't not write right now. Like I need to get
Right.
this thought out of my mind. And it's so much fun. And there's other days where it's like, oh, I have to write today because I want to be the type of person who writes every day.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tough balance. I think what I realized is, and I think this applies to any time we put pressure on ourselves because we think we have to keep up with our own race, the race that nobody's running but us, but we think everybody's running. It's if it does start, I mean, I'm gonna use this as if it overwhelms me, then it's unnecessary. Like I know that, and what Chris Phillips had said recently, which hits pretty hard, is things that you do that you think will take you from 90 to 100%. Like those little things you worry about, the 10% that you think is so important, which pretty much takes up like 90% of your mental bandwidth. It's like these little daily trifles that weigh you down. Just they keep adding up and they feel like, you know, they matter, but they might take you from like 90 to 91%, 92%. I don't know. I don't even know what the scale is, but productivity of like where you want to go in the next 10 years. If you do those things, maybe you'll get 2% more ahead. But if they weigh you down 90% like of your thoughts, it's just not a battle worth waging. And the thing is, here's the kicker, that what's going to take you to where you're ultimately meant to go isn't that those 90% of just mundane trifles and worries. It's like it's the things that has brought you to where you are already. It's just the person that you are. And what I'm taking from that is I think both of us know that we're the type of person who's never gonna completely give up on anything, on following our passion, on this podcast, on writing, on life coach. Like we're not gonna give up. We've come too far. And it really is who we are because we do love it. And even if we were to do 50% of the work that we're doing now, we, I think, would get to where we're ultimately meant to go one day. So why not drop the weight now and just enjoy the ride, the experience a little bit more, and realize that what got us here, the person that we are, will take us to where we are meant to go.
I can't remember who said it, but it was really powerful quote about people succeed not despite their efforts, not in spite of their efforts, but despite their efforts. It's that people succeed with all of the getting in their own way somehow. Like they're
Mhm.
going to end up where they're going to be regardless. And we do all these things to try and get there faster, and it slows us down. And it's almost a miracle that we still get there. Right. It's like getting out of your own way is so helpful. And this is exactly the time last year, give or take a few days, that I flew to Nicaragua on my surf trip and was gone for 10 days, didn't work at all. When I got back, my life was so much better. I had more business, I was happier. Things sorted themselves out because I got out of the way. And I'm flying tomorrow to Bocas del Toro on another
Mm,
surf trip, doing the same thing. So we're going to see what happens when I get back.
10x, 10x
10x.
productivity. Great, pal. Well, happy St. Patty's Day, by the way. Wait, is it just in Japan? Yeah.
Just in Japan.
Tomorrow.
Nice try, bud.
I'm already 3 Guinness deep. It's 7:15 in the morning.
I think what I want to
And a
leave
French car bomb on the
I
way.
think I think what I want to leave people with is going all the way back to that I am what you think. I am what I think you think I am. Is that
Yes,
think about this. Like actually, if you're listening, take a moment and think about how you think your best friends see you. It's so weird to think about it. Like you and I. How do you think I see you? Like really
that is
sit with
crazy.
that. And it's so weird. And it's weird because at least for me, like I feel like different friends see me differently. And because of how I think they see me, I almost show up slightly different in certain situations with them.
Mhm.
So, man, yeah, that's the mind boggle for today that you get to think about.
It's true. And what would happen if you didn't keep up that perception? What would happen if you dropped that? What do you think would happen? Would your friends see you as less than you are, or they maybe appreciate, and it's not just your friends too, it's the public at large if you are, trying to make it on social media or whatever. but it's just people in general. Like, we shouldn't have to feel guilty for if you feel like you're failing because you're not living up to this persona, then I think it's unhealthy. And I think that is advice I'm giving myself. Like, if I think I'm failed because I haven't done these things that I only put pressure on myself to do, then I think it is only going to weigh me down in the long term. People like somebody who could change. That means you're evolving.
Mm,
It shows your vulnerable side.
that's right, folks. Drop. Can't even talk anymore. That's right, folks. Drop the facade.
Drop
Show,
it. All right.
show
Drop
up in
it.
the show up in the messy middle. Be willing to do that. I'm talking to myself now. Be willing to do that. Be messy. Don't always have the answer. And with that,
Yes.
my dear, dear friends, we will see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in with us today. We love you guys.